Hello everyone and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I'm Karen Whittleworth, Managing Director of Worth Consulting Limited and Worth Learning Limited, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the seminar. It's great to see a number of familiar names and to know that you're with us, and obviously to welcome some people that haven't worked with us before. We hope you find this webinar interesting and informative. It's going to go for approximately 1 hour. It's designed to be interactive, and I'll take you through the webinar content and how we intend to interact in a minute. So let's just have a look at what we're going to be covering off, and let's just take ourselves over to our session. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Karen Whittleworth. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder and director of Worth Learning and Worth Consulting Limited. We're a training and development company, been going in business for over 21 years, and we're actually the largest UK supplier of ILM coaching and mentoring qualifications. For my sins, I'm also a master coach, a coach supervisor, a trainer and facilitator. My co-director and myself developed the Oscar coaching model, which I know many of you are familiar with. And indeed, this is now the coaching model of choice for many organisations, both nationally and internationally. I'm also co-author of The Manager as Coach, the new way to get results, and also Oscar Simplifying the Workplace Coaching. I say all this not to kind of blow my own trumpet, but just to give you an indication of myself and those credibilities. And obviously, in the course of this career, we've worked with thousands of organisations to help them move forward. I've got a few people saying that they're not sure if they can hear me. Can you hear me now? Henry, can you confirm that you can hear? Could somebody just let me know if they can hear me? Okay. I can't see if anyone else can. Yes, Sonia, okay. Right, so just checking on the technology. I'm going to take you through that in a minute. It's always the difficult one. So hopefully now everybody can see this. If you could just let Henry know that it's working for you. So I'm Karen, and let's just have a look at what we're going to be covering off today. As you know, you've signed up for the webinar for developing a coaching culture. And what we're going to be covering is, what does a coaching culture mean? What does it mean for you and your organisation? We're also going to be looking at what are the benefits. What are the benefits for you, your team and your organisation? We're also going to be looking at the impact that having a coaching culture has on you, your customers, your clients, your team, etc. And most importantly of all, we're going to be looking at how we can actually measure the success of having this coaching culture and what difference it's made to our organisations. So obviously a lot of you can now hear me, which is great, and I will be coming in with pictures when we do the question and answer. So let's just have a look now about how you can interact today. Many of you have already got the idea. You'll see in the chat room that there's the chat room where you can ask any questions and make any comments. Please continue to type your questions and comments in that chat box throughout the webinar. Of course, if I answered all of them, we wouldn't get through everything in an hour. So what we're scheduled in is some question and answer sessions every 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you, Brendan. So every 10 or 15 minutes, we'll be asking for your specific comments or going through the questions you've asked already and addressing those. So let's get ourselves started. What exactly do we mean by a coaching culture? As we said in our opening information, there is a sizable difference between an individual manager using coaching with a team and an organisation that's got a true coaching culture. An organisation that has successfully developed and implemented a coaching culture has an empowered culture where formal and informal coaching occurs on a regular basis, and where people use coaching behaviours as a means to manage performance, influence others, and that's upwards, sidewards and downwards, and of course to communicate clearly with everybody. In such an organisation, coaching becomes the default leadership style for the whole organisation, from the top to the bottom. Decisions are driven down to the lowest possible level. Even the most junior staff are encouraged to use their own judgment. Staff automatically expect and get developmental coaching from their immediate manager, and indeed maybe other managers. Staff also use a coaching approach with each other, with their customers, with their suppliers. And coaching is frequently the basis of HR and performance management systems. In such a culture, people take personal responsibility for their actions and they admit to their mistakes. And more importantly, they don't get punished for these mistakes, especially mistakes that are generated by innovation, unless such mistakes are repeatedly perpetrated and are clear gross misdemeanours. People also speak up, even if they have something critical to say, and that's even upwards. So according to Clutterbuck and Megginson, a coaching culture is one where coaching is the predominant style of managing and working together, where asking rather than telling is the norm, and where commitment to improving the organisation is embedded in a parallel commitment to improving the people. Sounds great, and I think we'd all agree that we all want some of this. So how do you know that you've successfully got that? Well, you know you've achieved a coaching culture when a coaching style, and by that we mean questioning, inquiring, supportive, creative, and insight creating, is used not just for individual performance improvement, but also in a wide range of circumstances. For example, improving the quality of strategic planning, regular team meetings, etc. Very importantly, constructive confrontation ensures that causes of individual or organisational problems are recognised and addressed. And what that means is that everybody expects feedback from the top manager down. So constructive confrontation is apparent and beneficial. And also helping others to learn and develop is expected and natural, no matter how important or busy you are. And finally, Peter Hawkins comes up with a definition. It's quite a wordy one, but I quite like it. So we'll have a look at what this says. So a coaching culture exists in an organisation when a coaching approach is the key aspect of how the leaders, managers and staff engage and develop all their people and engage their stakeholders in ways that create increased individual, team and organisational performance and shared value for all stakeholders. I said it was a bit of a mouthful, but I quite like it as a definition, so we'll see what you think. But basically what we're talking about is in such organisations where coaching is truly embedded, the organisation provides coaching skills training for all their managers, first line through to senior. And these managers in turn use coaching as part of their day-to-day activities. In addition, these organisations have a number of qualified internal coaches who provide one-to-one coaching as required. They've also ensured that coaching behaviours form part of their values and behaviour framework, and that their managers are recognised and rewarded for using these behaviours. Many of them have also provided awareness raising sessions for all their staff to help them use a coaching style in their day-to-day interactions and to be more receptive to the coaching style used by their manager. So we've given you some definitions now, and now it's time to just do a little bit of a question and answer and some comments. And straight away I've seen Alan and Henry's answered that. So Debbie, hopefully we'll get you on board very soon. So we'll get you on board. So some questions for you to think about now. If you were asked by people in your organisation, how would you define coaching culture? What will you say? What would be your words? What do you think about the definitions I've shared with you and that you'll get in the notes? And let's just think about, if a coaching culture is one where you have trained your staff, where exactly are you now? How far are you from achieving this? So in the chat room, just have a think about and some comments about, you know, how far are you from having a coaching culture? If what we say is 100%, are you 80%? Are you quite happy where you are, or you've got a long way to go? And is there anything else that you'd like to add to these definitions for us to discuss in the chat room? And we'll just give you a few minutes to write some questions in here, and then I'll take some time to answer them. Okay. Oh, unfortunately, we do have some people have got no picture and sound, so we'll have to kind of work through that with people. But we've also got a lot of people that are on board and can hear us and see us. So any questions or any comments and thoughts on those definitions so far? And is the pace okay? So. Any questions or comments from people? I know we've got a time delay, so we're looking as if everyone's quite happy with that. Could you just put an indication of a percentage of where you are so we can see what we're working with? So if you're, does the top tier of the leadership need, where's Usher's, need to lead this culture? Usher, that is a great question. All the literature says, yes, in an ideal world, yes, you do. But many of us don't live in an ideal world. And I've worked with many organisations where we've covered it off. And I think someone else said that they maybe pay lip service there. And where we cover it off with the leadership team, but we focus more on the middle management team. And then by default, we get the senior leadership team to come on board. If you are fortunate enough to have a leadership team that truly is on board and we can get to them and train them very early on, then we've got a much stronger chance. But we can really make a difference. Right, okay, great. And we've got some nice stuff from Kelly there about the manager using it. And Kelly, hold on to that, because what we're going to look at in a minute is the benefits, because the benefits of you as a manager using a coaching style could mean that in the long run it really frees up your time. So we're going to look at the benefits there. Oh, Helen, that's a great question. I personally think the entrepreneurial visionaries are great, but what we can really help them to do is use a coaching style. So instead of just expecting everyone to follow, they use what we call the compelling questions to pull people along with their vision. And I can talk to you about that a little bit separately after this session, if you'd like, because that is something that those visionaries, they're very good at kind of sharing and telling, but they're not so good at pulling. And imagine the energy if we could get them to use that coaching style to really pull people and get buy-in, which is what we're looking at. Oh, that's a bit of a shame from Bradley that we had a bullying culture. And again, Bradley, one of the problems we do have is that senior managers tend to think that what they're using is coaching, and in fact, it's far from it. And we have lots of clients that say, oh, we know what coaching is, and they don't at all. So I think we do have quite a big educational piece in many organisations still to do. So, so Philomena needs a more formal approach. Okay, and again, what Philomena's talking about is often when you've got someone that's a strong person driving coaching in that area, you've got a really nice strong culture. So that the challenge to us is how we can start to measure those success stories that you're getting in those pockets, Philomena, and that's where the return on investment comes in. Because if you can start sharing those best practice stories with others, then they will definitely want to have some of it. So we've got some questions there. So what I'd like to go into now is to go into the benefits that we've got. Okay. Okay. Lovely. Okay. So again, Greg, going a long, long way there with yours about the 30%. But what we've got to get is working with others is that the whole benefit of it. And again, this is why it's so important to demonstrate the return on investment for managers using it every day in their activities rather than just 20 or 30% of our internal coaches using it. So we've got a real wide range of a mixture here, guys, which is excellent. So let's go into now some of the benefits and think about what that means to us and share some of those with each other. So we'll be looking at the slides in a minute. Okay. Oh, and just before I go into the benefits here, I've just seen Penny's comment there, and absolutely spot on, Penny. People think people will resist coaching, but actually as soon as you give them that space to start thinking, and in fact that links beautifully with one of the benefits we've actually got up here on the slide. In my opinion, and obviously in Penny's, having a coaching culture promotes open communication. People will think for themselves, they will speak up, they will give you honest opinions, and they feel valued, which in turns builds that trust and respect. If you've got that openness with people, you've got trust and respect. And of course, if you've got trust and respect, then what you've got is really improved working relationships, because you're showing that people, every single person, can bring something to the party and is worth listening to. So I think there's some huge benefits in there. So one of the key things that we need to look at is some other benefits that we've got there. And let's have a look at the benefits for individuals, managers, teams, and the organisation. Okay, fab. Okay. And I'm just coming back to Bradley's there. Oh, I agree, Bradley. You know, knowledge is power. Bradley's put a really great comment there. I think some senior managers are scared of free thinking staff. Yes, but actually, how good is a manager that can enhance and harness those free thinking staff? That frees them up to go and do more, which is what we're going to look at in terms of the benefits. Fab. Okay, lovely. Let's have a look then why managers need to have, what the benefits are to managers if they do recognise that actually letting go gives them more control rather than less. So there's a lot of evidence now from the Chartered Institute of Personal Development, the ILM Institute of Leadership Management, Chartered Management Institute, and all this evidence shows that managers who coach on a day-to-day basis improve productivity, improve morale, job satisfaction for themselves and for their colleagues. And these managers find that people are more empowered and less dependent on them, thus freeing them up to focus on their more strategic priorities rather than being caught up in the operational issues, which comes back to Bradley's comment and Greg's and Penny's, that actually if you get your people to think for themselves and solve problems for themselves, you are then free to do actually your own job. So what that then gives you, it gives you more time to develop your staff, to develop skills, competence, and independence of your team members, which in turn continues to reduce their dependence on you, their manager. So the end result is improved performance, less stress, more time for the important things, as opposed to constantly putting out fires, and ultimately a happier and more productive workforce. And for me, those are the biggest benefits for managers. And once the managers start to see that actually getting their people and allowing their people to be free thinking and solve the problems for themselves, that frees their time up. So, for those of you who are managers who spend your day doing your staff member's job and then your evening doing your own, one of the key benefits for you is that the coaching can really free up your time that enables you to move forward. And of course, then there's significant benefits to the individuals who are on the receiving end of this. So like Penny said, once they get used to thinking for themselves, the benefits are huge. So they include increased confidence, increased job satisfaction. Such individuals feel engaged, they feel listened to, they feel empowered, they feel empowered rather than stressed. Their feelings of overwhelm are reduced because they can start to use self-coaching to develop their own resourcefulness, which in turn leads to improved performance, less customer, less colleague complaints, etc. So the benefits for the organisations, teams, managers, and individuals are endless. And as managers specialising in helping managers develop a coaching style, we've seen hundreds of success stories, including absenteeism falling from 5.4% to 3.8% over an 8-month period. Imagine the value or the return on investment that had for that business. It actually gave them a saving of over £200,000. So what we're going to be looking at, what's some of the benefits. So think about some of the key issues that are facing your organisation. Is it absenteeism? Another client of ours saw the number of grievances taken to HR dropping by 50%. And this is because we trained the managers to use a coaching style, and by using a coaching style, they were able to address the grievances at a very early stage, nip them in the bud. The same with absenteeism. They were able to help people proactively deal with stress, so absenteeism due to stress dropped significantly. We've also had 45% of the managers we've trained to use a coaching style have achieved a promotion within a 12-month period. Now that's staggering. And the reason we think that's happening is because such managers suddenly become go-to managers, they become more confident, they're managers that value and listen to their staff, but more importantly, they're managers who've got time to focus on their own job and their own strategic role, and therefore they get noticed by the powers that be and then can be aligned for more promotion. Other clients have seen their meetings run, their meeting time reduced by over 50% with the output increased. Again, imagine the actual cash savings you could have if you halved your meeting time whilst increasing the results. These are the kind of things that we're looking at that we want you to start measuring for your return on investment. Other organisations started to achieve sales targets month in, month out for the first time ever. Their team were trained to use coaching with their clients. Coaching is a really great sales tool, so it can improve performance. So any of these benefits, and of course, reduce customer complaints, etc. So hopefully you've seen a number of benefits there that we've seen from our clients, and a number of those possibly hit home for you. So as I've talked about here, these are our success stories. The absenteeism, promotion increased, grievances dropped, effective meetings, etc. So we're going to do a little question and answer session now and think about, are there any things in there that apply to you that you'd like to see achieved? So what could be some of the benefits for your organisation? And again, what we'll do is we'll start looking at typing those in and see if we can answer some of those benefits for you. And again, what I'd like to do, once we've got some of your ideas in, then we can use these specific benefits as part of our return on investment, because we then need to look at what behaviours we want to start changing. So I'll just give you a few minutes to start typing that in. So let's have a look what comes up there. And while I'm just waiting, oh, a more diverse workforce. Okay, Usher, thank you very much. So again, what I want you to think about now is that's kind of having a more diverse workforce. What will that mean to you? What will that mean in terms of output? Will it mean that you can provide a better service to a wider range in the community? Will it mean that you understand each other better so there's less conflicts? Start to think about that and turn it into some results, because we're going to start looking at some measurable results. Okay, so lovely. Okay, okay. LTA, okay, so good. Kelly, absolutely great. So we'll look at the reasons behind the absences, and this again, what you've raised here is what we're going to be touching on when we measure return on investment, because it's not just the coaching that's maybe made that. It could be that there's some changes in their circumstances that's actually helped reduce the absenteeism or is causing the absenteeism. So that's a really great one. Hold on to that. Oh, and Philip's got a nice one in there, increased trust and resolving issues. Good. Okay, Philip, we will look at how we can put an actual measure on this, because we're going to measure the time it takes to resolve issues, and then we're going to look at the people involved in resolving those issues and their salaries. So that's what we'll look at. So keep hold of that as your idea for your ROI. Fab. Thank you, Bradley. So again, what Bradley's sharing is some of the benefits he's found is if people can use that coaching style and they expect to have questions asked of them, then they come to the meetings much more engaged and greater buy-in. And a manager that uses outcomes and really channels the meeting can really get the meeting time cut down. Good. And Penny's got quite a lot of things. Oh, fabulous. So Penny's in HR and really reducing things coming to her. Fabulous. Accountability, employee engagement. Great, Kelly, that's fabulous. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so coaching is taking it and giving the content. So again, what we want to look at, the coaching then backs up the training, doesn't it? For me, training is giving people the skills and knowledge. Coaching is then seeing those changes in behaviour. Fab. Okay. So Greg's interested in how coaching can help others connect. Great. And how this can increase engagement and reduce turnover. Some fabulous stuff here. Obviously in the webinar, we won't be able to go into great detail with all of them, but we've got some good examples that we can work through here. Okay. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to go back to our slideshow. And we'll start to look at some of those benefits and how we can start to measure the return on investment. So the first thing we need to do to be able to effectively measure return on investment is to be able to identify the behaviours we expect to see. So identifying the benefits for the individual, team and the manager and the organisation and making them measurable is absolutely essential if you're to get buy-in from your people, the staff and the people with the budget. So the first thing you need to do is to get very clear about what behaviours you'd expect to see or what changes you'd expect to see as a result of the coaching. So Bradley's case, it could be reduced confrontation. We've got it up on here. One of the behaviours we might expect to see is a manager more proactively tackling conflict. We might expect to see our team members becoming more engaged and solving problems before they bring them to us. So instead of coming to us looking for the answers all the time, they come to us and say, this is the problem I've got, these are the choices I've thought through, this is what I've come up with, these are the reasons why, this is what I'd like to do, what do you think? And that's what Penny's mentioned, Philomena's mentioned, is happening with her. So these are some behaviours that we want to have changed. And I think those are some of the behaviours that a lot of you can relate to as well. So once we've identified the behaviours we want to change, the next step is that we have to think about what the result is, if those behaviours have changed, what will be the end result? So for example, if we now have a manager that is using a coaching style in their PDRs with their people, in their meetings, and they are listening to their people and making them feel valued, then those people, then they're helping to reduce conflict before it begins, which means that their staff, you have greater staff retention. People don't leave because they feel valued. Conflicts are proactively addressed and it's seen as positive. People get great satisfaction, okay? So for some people, the results could be improved working relationships. If people are feeling involved in the decision-making and solving problems, if you and the managers are working together in your meetings, then of course you get really good working relationships. So once you've identified the behaviours you want to have changed and what that will look like, what success will look like, sound like, feel like, what will be different, the next step, of course, is then measuring. And this is the key point. If you can demonstrate to people that you can measure that the coaching approach can address this and bring about this behaviour, then you've got people willing to invest time and money to help you develop and embed your coaching culture. Okay, so again, and Andrew's put some really nice comments in here. One of the problems we've got as trainers and coaches is that it's always quite difficult, and I think someone mentioned this earlier, to think about how much of the change in behaviour is actually down to the coaching and how much of it is down to other factors. So what we need to think about is what percentage, so let's say, for example, I've been using a coaching style with my team. As a result of that, they are proactively solving problems themselves. The time I've taken smoothing down the ruffled feathers, helping them work through things, has gone from 4 hours a day or 4 hours a week to half an hour a week. Okay, so that's a real result. But is that because of I've been using a coaching approach? Or is that because now we've just got this really new, great HR policy in place that has given people greater guidance? We don't know. So that could be what we call the other factor. So what we have to do is we have to think about the benchmark at the beginning. So what I'd like each of you to do now is just in the chat room to start thinking about one key benefit that you'd really like to see, one behaviour, both individually or team or organisationally, that you'd like to see change as a result of developing a coaching style or a coaching culture. And what would success look like? So either type it in or write it down. I don't mind what you do, but I do want you to hold on to that and think about it at the moment. So once you've got that in your head, and you can start typing up once you're ready, think about how you're going to benchmark that. What type of benchmark are you going to use? Are you going to use a staff survey, an employee engagement survey? It could be a comprehensive 360 evaluation. So you could look at doing a 360 evaluation now on how your staff feel about your managers, how they're using a coaching style. It could be on customer complaints. It could be anything. Then you start training your managers, then you start coaching, then you start encouraging, etc. Then 6 months later, 3 months later, 12 months later, then you measure again. Fab. Let me just have a look at some of the answers. True empowerment from Bradley. Lovely. Okay. So again, Bradley, what I want you to do, I want you to think about, really get some measures on that. What will that look like? Will that be that they come that your staff come to you, that there's a reduction of 10% in the amount of problems that your people bring to you? We're trying to set smart objectives here. That's what we're trying to do with the return on investment. Okay. Alex is taking more responsibility for their career. Success would see more job shadowing. Lovely. So Alex has got some very measurables there, so keep hold of those. Catherine's the same. People taking ownership of their own learning. So again, Catherine, yours could be that you want to see an increase of 5-10%, or that's what we're measuring, in people signing up proactively for programs or coming to you and seeking out coaching. And for Jackie, it's adult-to-adult relationships. Okay, where there's that honesty, the opposite of bullying. So we've got some nice stuff in here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the step-by-step return on investment calculation. So bear in mind that you've got your key ones there. So what we have to do is to calculate a really effective way to calculate the return on investment is to start calculating the cost to the business of failing to resolve some issue, or the benefit to the business of resolving it. So for example, one of my clients who was doing an ILM level 5 coaching program, they were having to do their coaching hours. They started coaching a colleague. They uncovered through the coaching that this colleague was feeling very low, was very stressed, feeling totally overwhelmed, was actually starting to underperform, which was the first time ever, and was on the brink of handing in their notice because they felt so disillusioned, so undervalued. Well, their options were either to hand in their notice and leave the organisation, or to go off on the sick. A 1-hour coaching session with this trainee turned this person around and helped them to start to take ownership and to start turning around their performance. So let's think about then how that might apply with you. So some of the costs that we have could be hidden, and many of them are, but they are definitely there. So think about what the cost to us might have been if we hadn't coached that person to give them more resourcefulness, so they had gone off sick. Other costs might be that we need to hire temporary staff while people are off sick because they're stressed and feeling overwhelmed. Okay. It could be loss of revenue because people aren't selling to the best of their ability. They're not performing. It could be that we have to pay out compensation to people, to customers who aren't satisfied with the service that they've received. It could be the cost of a compromise agreement if you want a poor performer to leave quietly. And I think, hand on heart, many of us know organisations where we've actually allowed our difficult staff members to leave quietly. So what does that cost us to the business, both in physical terms, monetary terms, and in other intangible terms? So in our book, The Manager as Coach, we provide you with a step-by-step guide and an example, and I will give you this in the notes. So whilst it does still involve some guesswork, we believe it's as good a guide as any to calculating return on investment as something so intangible as coaching. So let's have a look how it actually works. And again, think about the examples you've put up in the chat room and start calculating it along with me. So step 1, what you do is you estimate the total value of resolving the issue, or the cost involved in not resolving it. So let's say, for example, you are the manager who's successfully coached a poor performer. This coaching has helped to tackle her lack of skills in a job, uncovering hidden talents, and helping her to develop her resourcefulness, which in turn has helped reduce the stress levels, those feelings of overwhelm, and in turn has prevented her from leaving or going off sick. So the value we can put on this is the avoided redundancy, the recruitment costs, and the absenteeism costs, and of course then the added value because she's now performing. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that's a figure of 50,000. It could be in a meeting. If one of the coaching has reduced your meeting times down, you could think about, if you're cutting your meetings down by half and you're currently spending 10 hours a week in meetings, and salaries involved in those meetings are, I don't know, £30,000. Think about that. That saving could be significantly more than 50,000. For your own example, start to try and put some monetary value on that. So we're going to say that the value to the business of this person not leaving and not going on sick and us not having to hire temporary staff as a result of this coaching is 50,000. But the cynical finance people are going to go, oh yeah, that's all well and good. However, how can you be sure that it was your coaching that's done that? Okay, well, we can't. And that's the problem. Now, in terms of the person that I talked about earlier, they were actually pretty much convinced it was, because directly after their coaching, this person changed. So they could be 80% sure that it was the coaching that had contributed to it. But let's say, for argument's sake, in terms of this manager, there might be other reasons why the person hasn't gone off sick. They've had some strong medication from the doctor. There could be a number of reasons, whatever it might be. So let's say we now put a figure onto this. So we now say that we're attributing 50% of that value, of that return, down to the coaching. So now we're saying that one coaching session has returned a value of £25,000 to our business. And that's being conservative. Step 3 then is we've got to think about, okay, how accurate are we in our thoughts on this? Again, and this is very important if you're having to present these figures to quite hard-nosed finance people that really want to see some hard evidence. A lot of it is still going to be anecdotal because that's just the nature of it. But the more we can put monetary terms and the more certain we can be, the more confidence our people have in that return. So what we do in step 3, we adjust the figure a little bit more based on our confidence in our accuracy. So I'm pretty confident that that figure is right, but let's say there might be 1 or 2 other factors that I'm totally unaware of. So I'm now going to recalculate and say that I personally believe, and from the evidence seen, that the value added of that one coaching session just did totally is £20,000. So that's step 3. So now, to get the net benefit, what we've got to think about is, how much has the costing actually cost us? Well, if we're developing a coaching culture, that cost of coaching in hard cash is 0, because it's been done by the manager as part of his day-to-day job or her day-to-day job. It's been done by an internal coach. So there's actually no cash cost there. But it might have taken, the coaching itself took an hour, a bit of preparation, some follow-up afterwards. So let's say the time taken for that one coaching session was 2 hours. Plus, of course, there's the cost of training. So I had some training in coaching. It was internal, so it was quite reasonable. So the cost could be, let's say the all-up cost of the coaching is £1,000 tops. And again, I'm really kind of going extreme here. So what we now look at, we look at the net benefit, the net value to my business of this coaching. So we take the figure we came up with in step 3, which was 20,000. We subtract the cost of the coaching, in this case 1,000, and we come up with a figure of £19,000. So £19,000 is now the net benefit, the net value to my business of this coaching session. Pretty impressive. So the final step we've got to do is to get the ratio, the cost ratio benefit. So to do that, we then divide the net benefit cost by the cost of coaching and then turn it into a percentage. So let's have a look at that. So what we now do is we look at the net benefit. So in this case, it's £19,000. We then divide that by the cost of the coaching. In this example, £1,000. That now gives us a 1,900% return on our investment, or how we normally refer to it, a 19-to-1 return on investment. And by any reckoning, that figure is astounding. And indeed, many of our coaching skills training programs and coaching culture programs are actually currently running at over 30-to-1 return on investment. What that means in hard terms is that for every £1,000 spent, you're gaining £30,000 return. Okay, so it's a massive, massive return on investment. So when you go to seek a budget for your coaching training, or your coaching, and your people say, we can't afford to do this, the answer has got to be, we can't afford not to. Because if we don't invest that £1,000, we're not saving ourselves £1,000, we are losing £19,000. So it's absolutely a no-brainer. And this is why in such all the cases of austerity and where organisations are cutting costs, we have seen our business grow month in, month out, year in, year out, because the coaching and the demand for coaching skills training and coaching qualifications and developing a coaching culture is increasing as the evidence just mounts up that this is absolutely a no-brainer. If you want engaged staff, you want buy-in, you want high performance, then your managers must start using a coaching style. So that brings us to the measures. And we will, as I said, send you the paperwork and the calculation. So what I'd like you to do for the next 5 minutes before we start wrapping up the webinar is just to think about your own business. What are the main business drivers? We've been thinking about them throughout the session, so just capture them once more time. Is it absenteeism? Is it engagement, like we've talked about? Is it people taking ownership? Is it adult behaviours? Whatever it is, career progression, think about that. What is it that you want people to do differently? And how can you measure that? And then start to think about how you can start to use that calculation to argue your case. Yes, Brendan, it is. It's available in the resources, and you will be getting that. Henry will be emailing you these notes either later today or first thing this tomorrow morning. So let's have a look at that. Let's just think about some of this. So Brendan's asked a good question there. Any other questions on how you can start to measure the ROI for yourselves? It's a calculation that we use with, and believe you me, I've been in front of the most hardened of financial directors, and I have had them open up the checkbook and say, actually, we can't afford to do this, you are right. And the difference that it's made in these businesses. So again, not only do you need to do your calculation, but you need to start gathering success stories. So you need to be able to start saying to people, in this department, by so-and-so doing this, this was the results we've got. And I can share a number of those with you after this webinar, if anyone's interested. Okay. Lovely. Okay. We've got some great, better decision making, great. And Penny's there, you know, love to reduce the amount of work that the team managers do that should be completed by their team members. You can really put a cash figure on this. You can you could take a benchmark at the beginning and say, how many hours are these managers actually spending doing their team members' job? And I honestly promise you that many of them will be gobsmacked when they find out how much they're doing. So let's say, for argument's sake, it's 20 hours a week that they're doing someone else's job. If that's on a team manager's salary, you know, say at £30 an hour, that's £300 a week, times that per year, times that by 10 people in their team. The savings are absolutely massive. So for Kelly, okay. Good. Okay. Great. So okay, Kelly. So what would engagement look like? So is engagement then people coming to you freely so that your team don't have to go out and spend a lot of time trying to convince people? So again, your benchmark at the beginning could be the amount of hours that you spend putting together presentations, putting together all the materials you need, and the amount of time you spend persuading people, and then you can do a benchmark later on to see how much that time has reduced. So again, until I know the real ins and outs, we can't kind of come up to it, but we can really pull together some good calculations for you there. Okay, so we've got some nice ones there. Any other questions on that? I'll give you some time to answer that. So again, I should think about how you would measure that better decision making. Does that mean that it doesn't have to go back to 20 committees and therefore saving you time, because the committee times and the hours spent on committees could be it. So what does better decision making do? Yeah, third party stories are more than acceptable, Brendan. And get permission by clients to share those. So I've got some of mine, I've got some of the clients, but just start using other people's, but and get their permission, because it's quite nice for them to show the difference they're making. Some people, of course, are embarrassed to kind of admit how bad it was in the beginning, so they might not share them with you, but you'll find most people will. Okay, so I hope now that we've started to see how the calculation can actually work. So if we're ready, what we'll start to do is just kind of start to wrap up that, and of course we can kind of talk to you after the webinar individually if you've got other questions. So any other questions for us on that, type them into Henry and we will make sure you get individual and personalised answers to them. So I don't want to be on. Oops, we don't want me on there now. I've come back up again. Okay. So, okay. So if there aren't any more questions, okay. Yeah, and Paul, that's a nice one there about escalating upwards. I've had a number of clients that have had that same one as well. So, yeah, we need to encourage that. Okay. One of my clients' one was that actually decisions gets driven right down to the lower levels because senior managers were getting inundated with the most ridiculous issues to solve on. So that's definitely something you can measure. You can start to measure how many times they get the most ridiculous questions that could have been resolved lower down and what that means in terms of time. And that definitely can have a dollar sign put on it. So let's start wrapping up now. We're coming to the end of the session. We've covered, hopefully you've got a greater understanding now of what a coaching culture actually is and what it means for you and your organisation. We've started to explore what for us are the benefits and the impact this could have on our business, on ourselves, on our team, on our customers. And what we've ultimately looked at now is how we can measure it. What would success look like? How would we know? What are the measures? And we've looked at a return on investment calculation that hopefully you'll all feel comfortable using moving forward. So obviously we've had an hour's webinar here that talks about the return on investment calculation. It talks about the benefits. But many of you have indicated that you're interested in looking at how you can actually start to build a coaching culture. And the way you can build a coaching culture, well, there's many ways we can help you, but there's many ways things that you can do. So how we can help you build a coaching culture is we provide extensive training and bespoke training for coaches and managers. So we do 1 day, 2 day training programs, training managers how to use coaching. And in fact, we were the very first organisation in the UK to develop the Manager of Coach training program. And it's actually the one for which we won a national training award. So we're really quite proud of that one. We're also, as I said, the largest provider of ILM coaching qualifications in the UK, so we can help you develop coaching qualifications, both CMI, Chartered Management Institute, and ILM. As a qualified supervisor, we can provide an organisation, we can provide you with team, group or one-to-one supervision for your internal coaches to make sure that the coaching they're providing is consistent and of the highest level. Of course, we can provide one-to-one coaching to anyone wishing to develop a coaching culture, or anyone who's got those senior executives that need a bit more coaching and proof in the pudding, if you like. And finally, we offer some in-depth consultancy to help people develop their own coaching culture and to really embed it so it's successfully. And indeed, with that in mind, we're running a one-day workshop actually in Cardiff on November the 10th, which was we're calling Building a Coaching Culture, which is actually giving you a step-by-step guide of how to actually do it. So those are just some of the many ways that we can help you, but those are some of the things you need to be thinking about if you do want to develop and embed your coaching culture. So that pretty much brings me to the end of the session. We have been an hour, so we're pretty spot on. If you do have any questions, please type those in the chat room now. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your interaction. It's been great. If you'd like information after this webinar, please contact Henry on the link there, or go to our website, which is www.worthlearning.co.uk. And as I said, we will be in touch and we will be answering these questions you've put on here and circulating that to people. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to working with you and to those that we'll see very soon. So thank you, Brendan, and thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Penny. Glad you enjoyed it. So that's great. So thank you one and all. Oh, Catherine, I'm pleased about that. That's great. Thank you, Kelly. Good. So we've achieved what we wanted there. So and we're happy to, as I said, to take any questions. So thank you one and all, and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.